If you looked at any of my videos, I tried to mainly focus on the victim. But in this story, I couldn't only focus on the victim. I had to focus on that mother because she has a very powerful presence in this tragic, senseless story. I call mothers like her the "what did you do, mother?" And we all know mothers like this. You could be a mother like this. I hope not. Your mother could be like this. I hope not. But you know mothers like this. We're dating their sons or we're married to their sons and we could approach them. Your lip could be hanging on the floor. Your eye could be in your hand. You could be filled with blood all over your shirt. And that mother will look at you and she will say, "What did you do?" That is a "what did you do, mother?" As I was editing, I came across something that it stood out. This is actually on Sheila's very own Facebook page. It's one of those memes that you get from that little game that you play. This is Shelia. Shelia gives good advice. Shelia loves adventures. Shelia is protective of her loved ones. Shelia is inspiring. I just found that so interesting. This story happened in Pensacola, Florida on August 11, 2023. Brooklyn Sims was in her late teens when she started dating Keith Agee, who was also in his late teens. It's been noted by a family member of Brooklyn and friends that Keith and Brooklyn, they would argue. They would argue a lot. And a family member had said that when Brooklyn was pregnant, he physically provoked her. He choked her during this action. Brooklyn did get a protective order against him. I don't know if Brooklyn knew, but Keith had physically abused other young ladies that he had dated, stomping on them, pushing them, destroying property. He'd even threatened to shoot the mother of one of the young ladies that he was physically abusing. That's how I know that Keith's mother was a "what did you do, mother?" Never telling Keith that his actions were wrong. Never. I also went on to Keith's page and he has a post up. He goes by the name FFG Don. It says, "I don't know who needs to hear this, but a lot of y'all niggas don't even know if y'all gun work." Well, FFG Don would find out that his gun works in the most horrible way. I bet his mother was also in her son's affairs too, and the wrong way. Shelia Agee, around 50. Her Facebook page is still public. It's still up, so the world can see her in a text message talking about no other than Keith Sr., Keith Jr.'s father. I guess he may have stepped out on her, but at this time, he's with another woman, and it's right there for the world to see, and they're talking about his sexual prowess, whether or not he is at least bisexual. But you know what? That really has nothing to do with the story. But the reason why I needed to share that, because she is the type of person, from what I can see, who does stuff and she wants the world to see. She orchestrates everything and she wants to sit back and have a front row seat to it. That's the type of person that she strikes me to be. Now, Shelia, she works at a Home Depot in Pensacola. She has a supervisor position there. And lo and behold, Brooklyn worked there too. Matter of fact, Shelia would give Brooklyn rides to work. Why wouldn't you want to help the mother of your granddaughter? Because by now, Brooklyn and Keith had a little girl that she named Casey. The couple was obviously on again, off again. And please, because I've had comments like this in other videos about a woman that loses her life to similar incidents, they say, well, she shouldn't have gone back. It's easier said than done. But Brooklyn was young. She had her first child by this man, and she probably still cared for him. She probably just wanted his cheating ways and his abusive ways to not be there. But that's not the way that the world works, you know? So what I'm saying is, don't blame her. The two had still been sexually active with each other. And Keith had told Brooklyn that she had given him gonorrhea. Brooklyn said that she didn't have gonorrhea. She didn't have any STDs. Keith was acting like he was so hurt and betrayed by this, that Brooklyn had stepped out on him and been with somebody else, and in turn had given him something. This is where I know that the "what did you do, mother?" was all in her son's business, because Brooklyn had went to the doctor on August 5th. And she had test results, and she gave this information to Shelia. You'd think that that would be good enough, but it wasn't. While at work, Shelia and her son, they began to text one another. Keith, shit ain't do nothing but cost me money, and she gave me gonorrhea. I'm finna just shoot her. I know, I hate that for KC, but I can't take it no more. I don't give a fuck. Shelia, she responds, okay. Then she responds, okay, I'll call you and I'll tell you, motherfucker, if you want to go to jail. But if you don't come kill her, you a motherfucking bitch. This is what she says to her son. If you don't come kill her, you are a motherfucking bitch. She also says, don't call Nanny and tell her. She will try to talk you out of this. I guess Nanny is Keith's grandmother. Of course, she would talk him out of this. Keith, I'm not going to tell her why I left. I'm just going to tell her I'm going to the dentist. Shelia, don't shoot at my motherfucking car. I don't want to die. Keith responds, I'm not. Shelia, wait till I put her out. Keith, another thing. If you don't get out the car, mama, and I have to drag her out, or I can't, I'm going to ask you to step out, because I'm going to open the door and shoot her. Shelia responds, okay. Keith, the thought of her knowing she is fucked and the regret in her face will be enough to satisfy me. Then Shelia tells him she'll send him the address of Brooklyn's location and the store. She told him the exact aisle that Brooklyn would be in, aisle 52. She also tells him to delete the messages. So, quote, I don't want nobody to know I was texting your stupid ass, end quote. The last thing he says is, I've been thinking it through. It's the only way for me. Now, hours before the shooting, and according to Brooklyn's sister, during a break, Brooklyn would FaceTime her sister, and Shelia was right there. They were laughing and smiling and discussing plans with Casey that was going to happen. But Shelia knew that those plans were never going to happen because she had already orchestrated for Brooklyn to be murdered. So in Alabama, Keith leaves. It's about an hour and 36 minutes from the city in Alabama they live to Pensacola, where the Home Depot was. And this was just really all on his mind. He had an hour and 36 minutes to say, you know what? I'll just be a bitch, okay? I'd rather be a bitch than a murderer. But that's not what he thought. He was heading there, pistol in hand, to complete what him and his mother discussed. When Keith arrived to Home Depot, he went right to aisle 52, where Shelia had told him she would be. Brooklyn was stacking the aisle. That was her job. She was getting the aisle together and conducting the inventory there. And he sees her. He says, "Hey, you gave me something." She's thinking, "Oh, goodness." She actually says, "Not this again." And she just walks away from him. Can you imagine? She probably had this conversation with him way too many times. "You gave me gonorrhea. I did not." And she produces a test. She goes and she gets tested. She has absolutely nothing. This disease that he now has, this comes from another person that he was with. It wasn't Brooklyn. But Keith says he had never been so mad in his life that he pulled his gun out from his waistband and he shot her 5 times. 2 other people, they were in the area and they sustained minor injuries, but Brooklyn was dead right there in Al 52. When the police got there, they did take the webcam off. They didn't want for that to be seen there. Plus, he'd already fled. Now, for a minute, let's think about what Shelia was doing while this was happening. Your son came into your place of residence and killed the mother of your granddaughter. What's going on through her head? I mean, she's confident. Remember, she told him to make sure he deleted the text message. We know she's not smart enough because it doesn't matter what you delete. They are still there forever, up to 7 years, but they are still there. Those text messages are still there. Keith was arrested after he fled Home Depot, not too far away by some Mellow Mushroom pizza restaurant. And they said he was arrested without incident. Now, I had seen pictures of Shelia, and she was at the balloon release, and this was for Brooklyn. And she was there. I believe she was holding her granddaughter. But can you imagine? She was right there, engaging with Brooklyn's mother and Brooklyn's siblings and Brooklyn's friends, everybody that loved and cared about Brooklyn and couldn't believe Brooklyn was murdered in Home Depot by her daughter's father. She was there and she's watching all this, probably crying too. But she's smart because remember, she told her son to delete the text messages. Shortly after this balloon holding release gathering, Shelia was arrested too. So they had a court date, and after the verdict was read, the state presented evidence, and the judge actually had found out, like everybody else did, if they didn't know, that Brooklyn did not have an STD. And they actually showed the messages between Shelia and Brooklyn, where Brooklyn was making it clear that she had no STDs, that she went to a doctor's appointment. So she knew this, but she still wanted to see this young woman dead for some reason. And more importantly, she was egging on her own son to do this. And again, Keith did have a sexually transmitted disease, right? But it wasn't from Brooklyn. It probably was from the other young girls that he had been in contact with. The state attorney said, "I know in the grand scheme of things it doesn't matter, but we wanted to give Miss Sims a little bit of dignity." Brooklyn's mother, Tiana Taylor, said, quote, "I don't hate Mr. McGee, but I can't forgive him yet. I'm raising his daughter. That day, Casey lost her mother, her father, and her grandmother." Keith Agee was sentenced to life in prison without parole. He has since appealed the conviction. And a jury, they indicted Shelia Agee of principal to first-degree murder on August 29th, 2023. Under Florida law, she will get the same charge as her son if she is found guilty. Under Florida law, it carries a minimum of a life sentence. So this is the tragic, senseless story. I mean, Brooklyn should still be here. She should really still be here. But what was going on with this mother and son was something that had been brewing for a while. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know what's wrong with Shelia Agee. I don't. This is when I say I try to mostly focus on the victim, but it was a perpetrator that created this whole entire situation. If she had the power, I'm going to use that word, the power to put together and create this murder, she could have easily told her son, just leave her alone. Just leave her alone. Just like that. But for some reason, she didn't want Brooklyn alive. She wanted Brooklyn dead, and she wanted her son in jail for the rest of his life. Yeah, now you see why I couldn't just focus on the victim. Something was really wrong with this woman. And I'm pretty sure that when she goes before trial, they will see through this whole entire thing that she was definitely equal. She did everything but pull the trigger. Rest in peace, Brooklyn Sims. Continued justice for Brooklyn Sims. And my condolence to everybody that loved